Hello and welcome to episode 1086 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Tuesday, August 16th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing pretty well. I can't believe that it's mid-August. Football creep has officially started to hit for me a little bit. I got to be honest. Listen, I know Hard Knocks is the same every year, but they found a winning formula. Why veer from it? And the fact that it's my Lions this year is getting me hyped. Okay. But I'm still fully dialed in on fantasy baseball, and that's why I've been trying to like push it. Like I'll get to my football stuff later because I got leagues to win, or at least to cash in. That's what I'm going for. So our main event.
Well, aren't you
insane.
special?
Listen, you have fallen. Okay. Let's not sugarcoat it. You have fallen. You were first back on the week of June 27th through July 3rd. You finished first. You are now 14th. And yet, there are the points there.
Yes. I'm not out of it.
The points for a cash are still there. Now, you need to figure something. The tough part is, and I can relate to this because I'm also attacking pitching, there's no starters. If you need starters this year in a 15-teamer, like down the stretch, you're in a tough spot. You just really are.
Wins and strikeouts are like the two places where a lot of us can gain ground.
Yep.
So like I rolled out a 2-start Bumgarner this week and a 2-start Zach Greinke this week. And that's already started off really, really poorly.
I took the shot on Bradish, even with a trip to Toronto. He gets Boston at home. At home is what sold that. If it was at Toronto, at Boston, I wouldn't have done it. But I knew Toronto was going to be tough. But I need potential wins, and I thought maybe he could spike one. He did not, and then whatever case he can give me. So I went pretty ham on that too. So I feel you there. But we got some leagues. We got some leagues to win. We're going to talk about some interesting things today. We got a little bit of news and notes. Then I found this thing on Twitter called Ballpark Pal, just as BALLPARKPAL, and they did a list on guys that have missed the most homers this year. Overall, it's about a 25% lower than expected season. And they did an estimated list of the guys who have lost the most. And it's some pretty interesting names. And I'm curious some of your thoughts on it. And obviously, this is something we've been talking about more nebulously with guys that you've been identifying as middling power guys that are taking a big hit. A couple guys like that have shown up on this list, but it is very interesting. We'll get into that. And then speaking of starters that we're looking for, we'll talk about some available starters of note, more so in 12s, but they and lower, but they do have some 15-team availability, and we'll get into those. But let's start with the news. These first two kind of go together. Dustin May is going to return on Saturday, and Walker Buehler is done for the year. So call him all in order because he's done. He has the elbow surgery. It's over. Dustin May back on Saturday. What do you expect out of Dustin May? I know we worry about the Dodgers managing him very tightly. At the same time, he's making regular starts in the minors, and they don't have the standard depth that they usually do. Do you think May comes back as a 5-inning guy consistently? He's made 5 in his last 2 starts.
Yeah, I tend to not believe he will. I mean, the Dodgers have a pretty insurmountable lead in the division. And I know that they want, and I mean, they still have like a 5-game or 5+ game lead over like the number 2 spot in the National League, which everybody wants that number 1 spot because you don't have to play the first round game, right?
Yeah.
And so I know that they want to make sure they've got that clinched up, but I think they're going to have that clinched up either way. So like, why push it with him? I think people are going to go crazy and fab on him this weekend. I won't. Like, I mean, I'll put some bids in for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think most of us are in some pretty dire straits in terms of money left. But I mean, Dustin May was not a big strikeout guy to begin with. Remember, like he was always the guy. Like everybody's like, "Oh, look at the gifts! Look at the gifts!" And then you looked at the strikeout rate and you're like, "What?"
It was turning last year though, and it was only 23 innings, but it seemed like the breakout might finally be happening for Dustin May's strikeouts because we'd seen a big spike. The swing and miss was finally there with a 14% swinging strike rate. That was up from 8% the 2 years before. They had a 38% K rate. Things were looking better, but of course he got cut down by that TJ. So we don't really know if that was a hot little blip or something to really dive into with Dustin May. I hear you with regards to understanding that they might not push because they don't really have to. Again, I did mention he got 5 in each of his last 2 outings, 68 and 70 pitches respectively, both against the Round Rock Express. He had 18 Ks in those 10 innings as well. That's really going to get people excited about Dustin May. I wonder if we see some sort of piggyback situation. Now, I don't know if it, because I think he'll relieve for them in the bullpen in the playoffs. God, I'm all over the place with my words this morning. Because I think Dustin May will relieve in the playoffs. He could be the second guy in a piggyback situation, which would at least put him in a big win spot. I don't know if that's going to happen. He is starting official start on Saturday, but I wonder how things will work out if once Kershaw gets back and as they kind of downshift in September. I don't know. I understand going all in for May because the upside is there, but just make sure your expectation, you understand that this could be a bust in terms of delivering you a true badass starter.
You have to wonder if, like, maybe at some point they just tandem him and Andrew Heaney.
That's what I'm thinking. That's exactly righty lefty. Heaney's been a disaster injury wise this year, but a brilliant pitcher for the 31 innings that we have gotten. It makes sense to really just let them both go about 3 innings. And so that's what I mean by bust with May. I don't mean that he's going to be bad. I actually think he'll be pretty good, even though I'm usually averse to TJ returners. He's been so nice in the minors that I feel like he could be ready to go right away. But it might be 2 to 4 inning stints starting or out of the bullpen. We don't know. So I get going for him, but understand that there is some risk about him being your savior. As for Buehler, elbow surgery, it's not TJ, it's elbow surgery.
Well, it hasn't been announced what the surgery is.
Okay, so it might still be TJ.
At least as far as it was last night when I was writing the write-up. They had not disclosed what the surgery is. It sounds like TJ.
Right. Certainly. Season-ending elbow surgery after a grade 2 flexor strain. Kind of seems like it.
Sounds like TJ. So, I mean, obviously, you probably should have dropped him already if you're in a draft league.
Unless you had IL spots, in which case I understand, just keeping him in one of those. But if you, an FBC league, if you still have Walker Buehler, please.
I mean, but even in most leagues with IL spots, unless you have unlimited IL, you probably have 2 or 3 other guys.
If it got tight, you should have cut him because it's been pretty bleak, and now it's officially done. Obviously, we'll get more info if it's TJ, then he's out next year. If it's something that he comes back from next year,
0 chance he's on any of my teams.
There you go. That's all I needed to know.
For
Walker Buehler.
Yeah, like this would be the red flag of all red flags. I would not touch him.
I'm with you too, and I'm a Buehler mega fan. So this is me
coming. I love Buehler. I love Buehler too. I didn't get him this year, but it was just about where I ended up in drafts. It wasn't about him at all.
I got lucky.
I dodged a bullet.
Because I was up there, but I ended up going Woodruff more over him. And, Woodruff had a little bumpy start, but he's back on track. So I got lucky there. Tyler Glasnow threw a bullpen a while ago, last week, I think, is scheduled to do another one today on Tuesday, live hitters. He's awesome, but I don't know what we're getting here. He's working his way back from TJ. We know the Rays would be uber cautious. Is Tyler Glasnow doing anything for you on the waiver wire? Are you going for him at all? This is bullpen's not even on rehab yet.
I mean, unless they're going to make him the closer, which they theoretically could do. But I mean, like you got to think I don't think he has started his rehab.
Not even on rehab. These are bullpens.
So, and you got to, like you said, you got to think they're going to be very conservative. So 30 days is the length, the max length of rehab. I would assume he would be on there the entire 30 days. So he hasn't even started it. We're talking at least 4 to 5 weeks. Like he might be available. Like if you're in a head-to-head league that does its playoffs or championship in the last few weeks, maybe you stash him on your IL in the hopes that you get an effective reliever. He's not going to be a starter.
And if he is, I think it's going to be 3 innings for Glasnow at a pop. Yeah. I would not put any expectation here. I would not put more than $1. That's it for this year with Glasnow. And then even next year, depending on what we get this year, of course, but I'm not super giddy to get him just yet next year either with Tyler Glasnow. All right, so that's the news. Let's get into this expected home run list. Now, again, this is a Twitter called Ballpark Pal, and they highlight what they mean by expected. These outcomes are based on exit velo, launch angle, direction, weather, and stadium from a blended data set of fly balls from 2016 to 2021. And I'll put a link in the show notes. You can get more details on it. Again, Ballpark Pal on Twitter. So they put some of the top guys who have who've lost the most homers this year. The funniest thing is the number one guy is Aaron Judge. He has 46. He should have 60. Based on how well he's hit the ball.
Is so infuriating because you would love to see a guy like Aaron Judge break the single season.
It'd be awesome. I would love it.
And it's not going to happen. But if he had 60 at this point of the season, it probably would happen.
Yeah, I agree. There'd be a good shot. And so he's being impacted by the squish ball and probably some bad luck on a few others there. But 14 homers in the tank there that he has not gotten. The number 2 name is one that really surprised me. We've talked a lot about him on this show over the years. It started with you. You know, the meme was always, you hate Dansby Swanson so much. It was always price-based. You've even come around on the fact that, hey, he's good now. So
I was drafting him this year.
Like, you're fine drafting him. So that meme has come full circle here. He's on a 16-15 season right now. 16 homers, 15 steals, 294 average, 74 runs, 64 ribs. Dansby Swanson at the deepest position in the league has been amazing. Would you believe that he's got 13 more homers that he's been ripped off of and should be around what would that make? A 29 homer clip. So he's lost almost 50% of his potential homers, 45%. And what we mean by loss, again, is just circumstances happen. Sometimes they're just bad luck. But the squish ball has played a role here. What did you think when you saw Dansby Swanson number 2 on that list of missed out homers?
One of the follow-up tweets is a list of all the teams and how many team home runs. The Braves have lost 61 home runs.
Damn.
And
I imagine that's one of the higher ones.
Yeah, they're 4th on the list. You know who's number 1 on the list?
Who?
The fucking Dodgers.
Oh, my God. That seems so unfair.
Yeah,
they actually should be better.
67 home runs.
That's crazy. I'm not surprised about the Braves because another guy that's on here is Riley.
Yeah,
Austin Riley should have 40 bombs based on this metric here. He has 30 and an expected 10 that he's lost to these circumstances here. So let me ask you just broadly first. What do you do with a list like this when you look at it? Does it give you anything? Do you think, hey, if things go back next year where they put more of a neutral or even a positive ball, would any of these guys become draft targets? We're going to get into some more of the names, but when you see something like this, is it just for fun or do you have any stock that you put into it that is actionable?
I don't know that you want to put too much stock into it, but I definitely would add a little like check mark next to guys that aren't ready superstars, right? So, you look at the names on this list and, Aaron Judge, superstar. Like even Dansby Swanson, superstar. Like
I think for next year he will be. So because there's not going to be a cheap price. So yeah,
exactly.
I think we can put him there.
It's the guys like, you look at Marcell Ozuna. Marcell Ozuna's been super disappointing, and we expected a lot more power. And
the guy ahead of him counts too. I think Eugenio.
Yeah, but he's having a really, really good year in spite of that, isn't he?
He is. Remember when they both moved, when Suarez and Winker moved, I think we even talked about it on the show. I was less concerned about Suarez because he's got anywhere power. I was pretty terrified of Winker and basically took him off my draft list. Suarez having a nice little season, 19 homers, 117 OPS plus. But Justin, he should have 11 more homers. He'd be at 29. That would be such a different painting of his season for Suarez.
Especially with a bad batting average. A 229 batting average doesn't do you any favors. He would definitely get a boost. But like Ozuna, even a guy like Garrett Cooper, who's a guy who I haven't really liked in the past. I know you have. He'd be worth a dart throw. Yeah, like
9 homers for him, 57% difference. He would more than double his total if he'd gotten some of these expected homers. Now, some of that for Cooper is probably his park too. Miami suppresses pop, so some of that is just like, hey, unless you move out of there, that's not going to change. But again, there's all the other factors too with the ball. being the major one of that grouping. And then there's also, do you put, it's crazy to say this, but do you put Yelich on that list now at this point based on how he's been?
Yeah, because I mean, he's a guy who's clearly played better than I think the numbers have shown this year. I think he's had a really nice bounce back season. I've got him in Tout Wars, and he's been actually really huge for my team because it's on base percentage league, and he's got such a nice OBP, and he's getting some of the. He's never going to be the star that he once was, but
he has 16 steals, 8 homers, and the expected here is another 10. Another guy who gets more than double.
If he was 18-16 with a 356 on base percentage, you're looking at
crazy.
Yeah, we'd be like, hey, he's not a star and a superstar again, but he's still a star. Like, and I do think he's going to get probably underdrafted coming into next year because of that. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely a guy that, hey, this is going to be. I'm really glad you found this. This is a super cool list.
I agree. I got to be honest. I just recently found this Twitter, and I swear
I just followed them during this podcast.
Like every day since I followed them, they've had something else that I've been like, hey, this is great. So I was like, hey, I got to bring some of this on the show today. Again, at Ballpark Pal, they put out a lot of cool stuff, and this expected homer list is great. Now, based on your expected prices, we don't have any prices yet. We're going to get some prices soon. Rob DiPietro is putting together a 6th round.
I've got prices.
Oh, you already did a draft?
I'm in my 3-sport draft.
Oh, that's right. So you do have some ideas. Now, based on this list here and the prices that you're aware of, who are you most likely to attack next year, hoping that maybe you can get some more power if they de-squishify the ball a little bit?
I'm definitely going to avoid Aaron Judge. I just think this is going to be such a
He'll be a top 5 pick, top 3 pick.
And it'll be in a new park more than likely. It doesn't seem like he's ending up back in New York. In spite of the fact that he stayed healthy all year, like the injury history still scares the crap out of me.
Agreed.
And I just don't think he's a guy whose body's going to age well. If my Giants sign him to a 10-year contract, I'm going to lose my mind.
It's a full fade for me too, and it's just about not paying the premium on him.
Yeah.
Right? We should have bought him this year, and I pivoted late, and I was like, man, Judge is going too late, but I didn't act on it, and I'm not saying that to get credit. I lost. I did not get Judge. When he was going in like the 3rd, 4th, I was like, man, maybe that's too late for him. Even though I'm not, I'm a little bit nervous about his health profile. His power's there, 46-12 with 100 ribbies, 300 average. He's nuts, dude. But he's gonna be a top 3 pick next year. So not him. So then who are you looking at as somebody that you would actually want to buy? Is it? I
think Yelich and Ozuna, Austin Riley. Like, I know he's going to be really expensive, but third base is still a pick.
Yes.
And I'm learning, like, I don't have a third baseman in this draft, and we're about 150 picks into baseball.
Right.
And I'm looking at things and going, oh no, this is not going to end well. Like, cause even the Jose Mirandas of the world are gone. Like, I mean, there's
really?
There is
nothing
left at third base. Like, I'm legitimately going to have an absolute scrub and hope to try to trade from a different sport for it later. But
let me eat a fat L on Riley, by the way. He was my fade. I was worried that the batting average wouldn't hold up the power. Never had a question about. But when he hit 303 last year, I was like, hey, might have to pay a premium on that. I think he's probably more of like a 260 hitter. Nope, hitting 291. Power stayed there. Take a fat L on Austin Riley. Should have never quit him. I tell the Fall League story all the time. That's my own fault. I should have never, ever come close to quitting him. We've talked about him a lot during this year, and you were a full fade. I was pretty much a fade too. I wasn't drafting him, but you weren't even ranking Max Muncy pretty much. And that's paid off. He is having a late surge to where he's up over average right now at a 103 WRC plus. But unless you're in an OBP league, he's still a big negative in fantasy. He's hitting 188, 14 homers, 2 steals. He's on this list with 9 expected more homers, putting him up to 22. Are you seeing anything in this latest stretch that encourages you on some health with Muncy? Will you buy back in? What do you need to see to return to Muncy, a guy that we've been mega fans of, but the elbow scared us both to death this year?
I mean, things are somewhat encouraging, but they're not great or anything. There's nothing He's been better. He's on a heater for what this season is, but we're
Yeah.
still talking. We're
Pretty
still
good
talking,
since the break.
Yeah,
Right.
we're still talking about guys hitting 267 since the break. So like his heater is like what he should have been, right?
Exactly. His heater is baseline, basically.
And it's come with 5 home runs. So we're talking about 5 home runs and 86 plate appearances. Like that's fine. Like
hey, that's
okay,
a 40 homer pace. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if he could keep it up the whole year.
If he kept it up. Now, do you think the elbow is getting better, or is it just a heater? Like, are you seeing anything, even though it is a small run of 86 plate appearances, that suggests that Muncy might be feeling better, or do you just think he's caught a heater?
No, things seem to be getting better, which is surprising. Like you look at his max exit velocity, it's about 110. You look at it, barrel percentage about 21%, which is amazing.
Oh, that's a massive jump.
Yeah, hard hit rate is 54% right now. Like
that's up like 10, 12 points from the season mark.
This is since the break. So like we're just talking about like the last 3 weeks or so.
This is Muncy we're talking about, by the way. Continue.
Yeah, so I mean, I think maybe he is getting better. Maybe things are kind of turning around for him, and maybe he will end up being a decent bargain. I think the problem will be everybody will be saying, "Oh, he's a bounce back. He's about," so I don't know that the price is going to be as cheap maybe as we would like.
Fair point, especially if he has like a good playoff.
Yeah, and because he plays on the Dodgers, like in spite of the fact that he's had a really bad season, like he still has 49 runs scored and 44 RBIs. Like he's still going to end the year with like a bad year hitting close to 20 home runs and an 80-80 type line. Like the batting average will suck. But like people are going to be like, well, you had a 217 BABIP and and the
elbow's looking better. Yeah. No,
so,
you're and go back to your third base point. He also qualifies there and has multiple positional eligibility. So I think you're right that while Muncy will be cheaper, it might not be bargain basement because of the upside of him and the team context that he's on.
He's going to go in the same spot as Anthony Rendon went this year. And he's going to be probably overpriced, which is unfortunate, I think. It may not be overpriced.
Maybe.
You're not going to get the discount that we should have gotten considering he's hitting 188 right now.
I agree with that on Muncy for sure. A little bit of news. I don't want to say breaking news because it's not like crazy, but I want to add it to the rundown real quick, going back to some of these injuries that we're talking about. Mike Soroka starting a rehab and will start on Tuesday night. Now, this is a guy I love.
Me too.
But been a minute since we've seen him. We don't know what we're expecting. He had the Achilles injury and then got hurt again during the rehab, if I recall correctly, right?
Yeah.
So what are we looking at here? Is this somebody you'd pick up? I will say this. I'll pick him up over Glasnow, but that's not saying much because I'm not getting Glasnow anywhere. Yeah. Would you go out and try to get Soroka as a stash?
I don't think so, just because I think the Braves will be really, really careful with him considering what he's been through injury-wise.
And they've already got 6, by the way.
Yeah. And he's one of the guys, because he doesn't have a huge strikeout rate, he really gets a lot of his value from volume. Like he's going to give you a lot of really quality innings, and he'll compile those strikeouts. And if he can't do that, then there isn't much value there. If he's not going to be able to go 6 innings in a start, which I can't imagine he will. Like I think he'll be a 2-inning guy, maybe even just a 1-inning guy.
That's kind of what I think.
And unfortunately, like that doesn't play. Plus, you're in a dangerous park in a dangerous division, with only one bottom feeder team in Miami. So like I think for next year, this is a really good sign, and he'll be a guy, because as much as he's missed a lot of time with injury, it hasn't been with an arm injury. It was a leg Achilles thing. So
exactly. And finishing the season on the mound will be good if Soroka can do that. They don't have 6 currently. Pardon me. Ian Anderson obviously sent out, so they have 6 potentially, but as long as they keep Ian Anderson down, of course, Soroka would make it 6. So I wonder what they do there. We're seeing Kyle Wright deal with the arm fatigue right now, and Max Fried's on the concussion IL.
Fried's supposed to be activated this week, though.
Okay, good. That's good. And it does seem like Wright is just getting pushed back. He's not like off or on the IL or anything. He just got pushed out of the Mets series into the Houston one. So from bad to worse in terms of potential start there. Do you think that now we know that Spenser Strider has no innings limit, which is amazing. They already have said that on record. Do you think Wright faces any sort of massaging or IP management?
I mean, I think you're seeing a little bit of that right now, but for the most part, no, because he pitched so many innings in the minor leagues last year. Like
I think you're dead on with that. So
yeah,
I'm not too worried.
I think he's
as long as he gets through this arm fatigue, I think Wright's fine too. So there's just not gonna be that much room for Soroka. I agree with you. I think he's a 2 to 3 inning type guy for the most part. But I did want to bring him up just in case. If you are in like an NL only, you take the shot just because those 3 inning outings could be useful to you. But I'm not really sure any mixers. I'm going for Mike Soroka right now. All right, let's talk about some available SPs.
Wait, before we move on from, I know like the home run list thing is really, really interesting. I want to just mention one other guy that I'm going to be all in on next year. And I think some people are going to be like, well, of course you're going to be all in on him. But I think he's going to get downgraded because of the lack of power this year. And that's JT Realmuto. JT Realmuto being on this list is absolutely huge. And we've seen some other catchers that are going to come up and jump up on rankings next year. And like in this draft, I mean, JT Realmuto was not the first or second catcher off the board, which was really surprising me. But we're talking about a guy with 15 home runs, hitting 260. And if for some reason, like he got these home runs back, we're talking about a guy who could potentially, let's see, they had him. He's got 13 home
22.
runs. They're saying 22. He's got 15 stolen bases. A 22-15 season at this point with 262 batting average from the catcher position is legitimately like a top 2 round pick. And while I'm not a huge fan of spending that kind of capital on a catcher, I don't think he's going to cost that much. And so, yeah, Realmuto is a guy
he's the number 1 catcher this year. Why did he not go first?
Will Smith
went first?
No, I think someone else went first. I'd have to go double check. But
Contreras, Kirk, Varsho.
Now remember, this is a 3-sport league, and so not everybody's as strong in baseball as they would be in other sports. One of the reasons I kind of like it in terms of looking at how the how maybe the average player might approach things. Mm-hmm. I think Kirk was the first one off the board.
I can get behind Smith at 1, but Realmuto has to be 2. I mean, yes, he's going to be 32, but
15 stolen bases with a good batting average and a great lineup and a great park. I don't know how he can't be number 1. It's a 1 catcher league, so it's the only reason I didn't pull the trigger that early. But
Smith's 4 years younger. I can get Smith even with the speed, but that's it. I wouldn't do it. I would put Realmuto first. I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying I can at least understand. But Kirk over him? You're tripping. You're tripping. Good call out there. Realmuto, if he comes with that kind of discount and, if he has a big surge here, he'll evaporate that discount. But if he just kind of keeps going along, I mean, he is the number 1 catcher already. So it's not like he's hidden. But I agree with you that at 32, people might start to down him a little bit.
I honestly believe he probably should be a 2nd-round pick next year. So, like, it's
I don't think you're wrong.
If he's not going, if he's going in that 4th round like he was this year, I'm not a big fan of early catchers, like I said, but I pulled the trigger on Realmuto a few times, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah, I mean that's paying nice right there with JT Realmuto. Good call out there to end the home run list discussion. Now let's move on to some potential available SPs of note. Sorry, 15 teamers, you're not getting as much here. This is really 12s and below that these guys are going to have wide availability, but they are some guys that I think could be potential game changers for people down the stretch. We've talked multiple times about how difficult streaming is this year and finding guys on the wire. So hopefully we got some names here for you. And it happens to be a bunch of team groupings. I was kind of writing the list and I was like, well, they're on the same team, put them together. Well, these guys are all on the same team. So we got 4 teams covered. We got a couple rising Red Sox. Have you been paying attention to what Kutter Crawford's been doing as a starter?
I do, because I've got him on a couple leagues.
He's been nice, man. Like his relief numbers actually way down his line because he had a couple of horrendous outings as a reliever early in the season. So that 5.63 ERA and 1.63 WHIP are weighing him down with those 16 innings. In 48 2/3 as a starter, Kutter Crawford has 3.70 ERA, 109 WHIP with 43 strikeouts. So, under a strikeout per inning, but a decent little total there, 8 per 9. And then I want to also throw in Michael Wacha, who has returned. He had a gem on Sunday night against the Yankees for his return, and he's been pretty good on the year. Now, he just missed a month and a half, but he returned with a bang. Still not doing it with any dominance, a very low strikeout rate, 59 strikeouts and 77 in the third, but everything else is popping off. His command has been there. Kutter, Crawford, and Michael Wacha, a couple guys for the Red Sox who are available. Who do you like better there? Give us your thoughts on these two.
This is tough. I think they both have some pretty big blow-up potential mixed in with the upside. I'm going to go Wacha just because of a little bit longer track record, which means I think Boston will give him a little bit longer leash.
Well, much longer track record, right? Crawford is brand new.
Yeah.
So do you worry about his innings? Because Crawford, just for the record, threw 97 innings last year, and he's at 89 this year.
Yeah, and I just think if Kutter Crawford has like 2 really bad starts in a row, he's gone. Like they'll go back to Winkowski. Yeah. So whereas Michael Wacha, like especially considering the foundation he's already built in his numbers, like he can survive 2 or 3 really bad starts. Now that may not be good for your fantasy team because he just keeps getting run out there. But I mean the underlying numbers on Walker are not great. Like there is regression coming, but it's one of those things where like, hey, maybe there isn't enough time to really regress him.
Exactly. And because I look at it too, and I'm finishing my SP rankings today. Finally, they've taken forever. It's going to be a huge opus. But I was writing up Wacha last night, and I can't get beyond the 82% left on base rate and 234 BABIP. That doesn't mean that I think he's a stone cold luck box either. It just pointing those out. You have to point those out in how above average they are. I look at his 73% left on base rate and 298 career BABIP, and I think he's going to regress toward those. But he is having some impact on why they haven't been making as much hard contact against Wacha this year. If the strikeouts were better, I could get so much more into this, but there's just so much contact that I do think that there could be a sharp regression from Wacha. Like you said, though, the clock might run out before it happens. He isn't as available as Crawford, 47% and 42% at Yahoo and ESPN respectively for Wacha, whereas Crawford's at 13 and 6. So I'm fine pivoting to Crawford if Wacha's not available, but I do favor Wacha as well, slightly.
Yeah, I'm a little. I've got Wacha on my tout team right now, so like I'm going to play with that fire for a little bit. But
I don't blame you.
I'm really scared.
Yeah, and you should be. You should be. I have them about 17 ranks apart. 71 for Wacha, 89 for Crawford. Let's move over to the next team here on the list. It's a couple of interesting Orioles, or actually a trio of interesting Orioles. And it's not actually going to be Kyle Bradish, who a lot of people have talked about. I could have included him here, but I think we've talked about him. Austin Voth, Dean Kremer, and Spenser Watkins are the trio that we're looking at here. And they've been an interesting group. Now, a lot of it, plain and simple, is that home park is awesome. But that's okay. Like that's fine to admit that. It is a key driver in the success for these guys. I'll tell you what, though, Austin Voth is somebody that I liked him with Washington and thought maybe there could be something there. And it never really came together. And I think it might be finally coming together with him. And that home ballpark is playing a big role. Now, Watkins does not have the dominance. He throws 90-91, but he's been very good of late. And Dean Kremer, I think we talked about this on a recent episode. He is now the prize of the Manny Machado deal because UCL Diaz just has not come through, and Kremer's having a breakout season. So you look at the trio since like mid-June. And the reason that's my starting point is because that's the last time I did a SP update. So it's about a 2-month sample. And they're about the same guy. Watkins has a 16% strikeout minus walk rate. Voth has a 17%. Kremer has a 14%. That's a good shorthand to get you where you need to be with these guys. They've all got 3.67 or better ERAs. Kremer's whip's a little high at 131, but Voth is at 118 and Watkins at 104. Let's start with your favorite of the Baltimore trio: Spenser Watkins, Austin Voth, and Dean Kremer. And then I'll get your thoughts on the other two. Who's your number one here that you're going to go for?
I think it's Watkins.
Is that an agonized decision because they're all so good, or because you don't want any of them?
I don't want any of them.
Boo.
I think Watkins, while his numbers haven't necessarily been great over the last few starts, the
Voth
underlying
is the
number,
guy.
the underlying numbers have been really, really good for Watkins.
Yeah.
Or much better. Like, so, especially when he's pitching at home, I'm much more likely to give him a shot, and I have been rolling him out there in a few leagues. Austin Voth, yes, like the numbers have been good, but the level of competition has been really bad. And you could probably say that for all of these guys because they're pitching against the same teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like his last 7 starts, Texas, the Angels, Tampa Bay 3 times, the Reds, and Pittsburgh. Like, he has not faced a good offense in his in the last like month and a half. Like, so I think you can continue to stream him against good matchups. Like, it's not his fault that's the way the schedule lined up. He should, you can't necessarily penalize him, but I don't know how legitimate it really is.
It's contextual, right? You have to be mindful of it, but you're right. You can only punish a guy so much for that, but it does go into the color of if you want to get them. I will say, you mentioned Tampa Bay 3 times. They're 8th in WRC plus against righties since July 1st. We perceive them as terrible, and I have the same perception, but they've actually been, over the last month plus, pretty good. And
I mean, to his credit, like, he only has 7 walks in this time span. Like, that's really, really good. He's going to limit any sort of damage that does pop up if you're not putting men on base. So, like, maybe I think Voth is a little bit interesting here.
Voth's my number one.
Kremer is like 0 interest for me. He's actually been really, really bad since July 1st with a 5.60 ERA. I know he went through like this like stretch where it's like, hey, he's back, he's pitching well, but that has ended.
Well, he had to, because again, that sample that I gave you is since 6/14, and he has a 3.67 ERA. So if he has that bad of an ERA recently, that means the early part of that sample was really good, and probably where all his good starts reside. Now, was that a schedule-based thing for Kremer? Did he have some easy schedules early on, and now it's gotten tougher, or did he just regress?
I think both. It's definitely gotten tougher. He's got a tougher road. He's got to start against Boston and the Yankees mixed in there. But he also got, blast. Well, he got blasted at Cincinnati.
I see he went to Cincinnati. Yeah, gave up 2 homers. That'll do it. 10 hits.
So, I mean, in like a deeper format, maybe he's a team streamer. Like, hey, he's got a decent team, decent matchup coming to Baltimore. Great. But probably not starting him on the road. Probably not starting him against half of that division. So
let's do it like this. 15 teams, they're all team streamers, or are you out on Watkins?
No, I think I'm most in on Watkins.
Okay, sorry. So they're all at least team streamers in 15.
I think they're in a 15. I mean, at this point, like you said, like in our main event, like there is nobody to pick up. Like, there's
Voth is out there, and it's only because I got a couple names ahead of him, because he was on my target list, but I got a couple guys just ahead of him, so I didn't get him. But yeah, that's about it. It's not a whole lot out there.
Yeah, a 15-team mix. I think anybody with a pulse can be viable at times, especially when you've got so weird to say, Camden's such a nice place to pitch.
It's the most insane development of the year. It's like the best place to pitch. So in 12 teamers, who's a team streamer, who's a standard streamer, who do you not want?
I don't think any of these guys are anything more than a standard streamer.
Okay.
I think if you see it, I think if you see some good matchups coming up, you go, okay, I'm going to hold them for the next 2 weeks. But yeah, especially at this point in the season, in which like there's so little time, like the definition of what is a team streamer becomes a lot more varied in your shallower formats. Like, you should be keeping your top 40 starters, and then the rest should be team streamers.
I agree. And I would do the legwork on the schedule. Schedules change, but try to map out what you can, at least get a general idea.
At least 2 weeks ahead. Yeah,
exactly. And with the Baltimore guys, all 3 obviously on the same team, you can see like, okay, what happens if they get bumped off schedule? Does it go from a Detroit start to a Houston start, or does it go from a Detroit start to a Cleveland start? And Cleveland's way better than Detroit, but they're not terrifying the way a Houston would be. And I bring that up specifically because they have a run where they face Houston and Cleveland, but then it's mixed in with, I said Detroit, but like Oakland's right there. So you would want to see like, who gets that. Okay, so that's fair with the Orioles. Let's move on to our next club here. The Royals. The Royals on the rise. Now, there's a little split here. The first guy I think is well above this group, and that's Brady Singer. And he's on just another level right now. And then Lynch and Kris Bubic are more in the range of the other guys that we've talked about. So let's start with Singer, who is not as widely available and has been absolutely awesome. I feel like I don't know that it's the full breakout, but I feel like this is kind of the breakout of Brady Singer here that's going to lead to a lot of hype for next year. 57% of Yahoo, 38 at ESPN. I think those numbers are both way too low. What do you think of Brady Singer and what he's been doing lately?
Brady Singer is an iceberg. We're seeing the tip of the monster right now. And if he has a small change, and by small change, starts throwing the change-up more.
He already did, but even more. I agree with you.
It's like 7% right now.
Yeah.
If he can get that to 12, 13%, he could be a potential SP2 in fantasy.
Totally agree.
And I mean, I wrote him up. I wrote him up after his start the other day, and here's the thing: in our leagues, in the leagues, on NFBC, he's not available. Absolutely, he's 36% rostered, or at least he was after that start on ESPN.
Yeah, and 57 at Yahoo, which is still widely available. I can get Singer everywhere right now.
Absolutely, like he is going to be one of my top draft targets next year.
Same.
I'm going to be pushing that ADP up, so I apologize.
Wide awake sleeper, baby.
Yeah, he is a legit dude. Pitches in a great ballpark in a really great division to pitch in. I think he's legit a potential ace.
We are in lockstep there. I mean, this was a premium prospect. He is, starting to show why he was. Last year was kind of the growth season, which showed glimpses. This year, he's taken a bigger step forward. Former first rounder, from Florida, 18th overall pick. He was drafted in the second round by the Jays in 2015. Said, "Now I'm going to go to college." Bumped his stock up into the first round. And he's only 25, right? Like, it's not like, oh, finally with him. It's, hey, this is the normal trajectory, and Brady Singer is on it. Now, the other two guys, like I said, you look at the trio since June 14th when I did my last update, and they all have good ERAs, but the other two guys, Lynch and Bubic, have horrendous whips in that period. 143 for Lynch, 146 for Bubic. Now, they have improved since then, but using that full 2-month sample there, those were running pretty high. Now, over the last month, it's at a 123 for Bubic and a 135 for Lynch. So still pretty high for Lynch, mostly due to a 322 BABIP, a lot of hits going through. But both these guys, both these lefties, Bubic and Lynch, have found some viability too. Are you looking at them in shallower mixed leagues, 12s and below, where they're going to be widely available? Kris Bubic and Daniel Lynch, who do you like best?
I want Daniel Lynch to be good.
It's there, right?
It is there, and if you cut off one of those starts from that most recent sample, it is there. Since in his last 3 starts, so since the All-Star break, he's got a 2.20 ERA and a 1.16 WHIP with almost a strikeout an inning in 16 innings, and these starts are against the White Sox, the Red Sox, and the Dodgers.
That'll play. And I remember on the Dodgers one, he walked 4, but only gave up 2 hits. It felt like he was not trying to give in against them and really battling. I was actually pretty impressed. Even though it was only 3 strikeouts, 4 walks, it was 5 innings, 2 runs, or 2 hits, no runs for Lynch against the Dodgers. I came away impressed with that outing because I felt like he was trying to make sure that he didn't give up that big hit, and he avoided that. So I'm with you. I like Lynch a bit more than Bubic. Have you found some streamer viability in Bubic though? Because he's been doing his thing lately too.
Yeah, I mean Bubic, the main issue there.
You can also call him tit scratch if you want. It's an either or situation, Bubic or tit scratch.
Yeah, the problem with tit scratch is that he walks so many guys. And it's been better,
but
Well, not really. And when the ball does fly out of the yard, it's not going to be a solo shot. And so, or when he, the defense lets him down, or he's just given up. He's just
or just gives up a base hit. Yeah, you're just saying there's traffic all the time with Bubic, and that does make things difficult. But are you seeing some growth here, or just a hot run? Because he does have some decent numbers of late. If you look kind of since just July 1st, 3.40 ERA, but then to your point, the whip jumps up to
and he's a killer in your whip.
And that's pain. 140 is hurting you.
Yeah, a team streamer, I guess, in good matchups. I mean, the one thing is that he hasn't really had good matchups. Over his last 5 starts, it's Tampa Bay, at the Yankees, Boston, White Sox, Twins. Like, he hasn't gotten he might get some not Royal starts, obviously, but some Tigers starts. So like when he's got those kind of matchups, yes. When he doesn't, probably not. Like he's a guy I've got no problem kind of bumping up.
He could just be a standard streamer where you cut him after you use him,
especially in a 10 or 12. Yeah.
Yes. Sure. The interesting thing on Bubic, he's not leveraging the home park. He's actually markedly worse at home. 5.36 ERA, 1.66 whip at Kauffman. And that's supposed to be a boon for the guys over there. So he's not really leveraging that. I think he's definitely the least refined of the 3. I'm still keeping tabs on Bubic, but I love Singer, and I'm definitely in on Lynch. And feel like he's making big steps forward. He'll be an actual sleeper next year, because I think Singer will again be a wide awake sleeper. Everyone will be in on him to the point where there's no sleeping there. But I think Daniel Lynch could actually be a legit sleeper where he's very cheap and high upside. All right, let's finish with a couple of Cubs. Keegan, Thompson, and Justin Steele. They've kind of been in the consciousness of streaming throughout the year. I think they started as 15-team type streamers. Now they're both being held in 15-teamers because they're toting mid-3s ERAs with rough whips, especially Steele at 141. Thompson's at 127, which isn't terrible. Steele has the Ks to kind of mitigate his whip. Thompson has the better whip and the lesser Ks, 88 and 102 thirds. Steele has 106 strikeouts and 101 and 2/3. So I have them very similarly ranked. I don't have a big split here, so that's an acceptable answer if that's how you feel. But do you have a preference between Thompson and Steele? And if so, who?
That's a really tough question. I think I don't really have a preference.
I ranked them literally right next to each other. So, I mean, that is an acceptable answer as far as I'm concerned.
They both have kind of different issues, but the same issue. They both have trouble keeping men off bases.
Yes.
Their control kind of comes in and out. Steele, I guess, is a little bit better with the homer suppression.
I tell you though, he's one of those guys I watch, and I have the disconnect between his stuff and the results he gets. When I watch him and he's on, I'm like, this guy should be a monster. He's got some nasty stuff. And then you look at the results and you're like, it's just not there. But of late, Justin Steele has been getting into his strikeout bag a bit, and I'm hoping that it's something, a sign of future things. It's just a 3-start run, but he does have 14% swinging strike rate in that run. And I'm like, okay, are we finally seeing something here? It's just the problem is when he doesn't have it, it's like a 5% swinging strike rate and like a 2 strikeout kind of night. And those are tough.
And I mean, he's still running at like an above league average zone contact rate. So like it's a matter of like he has to stay out of the zone, which then leads to those walks, right? If people just decide to spit on it. I don't see like a huge step forward for either of the guys. Like I think they're fine streamers.
This year or next year? You don't see a step forward next year even?
For next year, really. I mean, for this year, I think you take advantage of Pittsburgh. I think you take advantage of the Reds. The bad teams in that
ideally division. On the road with the Reds. You don't want to go to Cincy, but I would take those guys in Cincy, Steele and Thompson. Yeah, I'd be okay taking that shot.
I think I would be a little bit more likely to take a shot on Steele in the road starts as opposed, or like in Cincinnati, just because I think he does a pretty good job at home run suppression. So like if there is a guy that I think is gonna take a step, I think it is Steele, but he's got to figure out a way to more regularly miss bats.
I agree.
While getting people to actually chase outside the zone, not just throw it outside.
He has the stuff to do it too. It's just not as consistent. One last thing on Steele. You mentioned the home run suppression. He went from a 26 homer to fly ball ratio last year and a 1.9 homer 9 in 57 innings. He's at 9% this year with a 0.62. Obviously, that's each end of the spectrum. Do you think he's closer to the guy who's suppressing the homers? Do you think he can maintain something in this 9% homer to fly ball range with a good home run rate? Or are you worried about because he is a ground ball guy, 51% ground ball. Are you believing in the new home run suppression for Steele?
Not entirely. Like, I don't think it can be this good necessarily, but I don't think
but more than the guy he was last year.
Yeah. I think he's much closer to this than he is to does a good job of keeping the ball down. So like I don't think he's gonna like revert back to the guy that was giving up almost 2 homers per 9 last year.
I think too.
I think he probably is around 1 homer per 9. And I think
I can live with that.
Yeah.
He's at 0.6 right now, which is definitely, going really hot for Steele. But I agree, he's not quite that good. All right, last thing then. Give me your 2 favorites from the whole group here. If you're in a 12-teamer, 15 teams, there's sporadic availability. Give me your 2 favorites that aren't Singer because he's such a cut above.
I was about to say because
he's too far above.
Singer's 1, and it's not even close.
Yeah, he has our easy number 1. I included him because there were 3 Royals there, but the rest are all kind of in the same grouping. Who are your 2 favorites in a 12-teamer that you would go out and try to get right now? I know you don't know the schedules by heart, so just go off of skills right now.
I'm gonna go Daniel Lynch.
Okay,
is 1, and Michael Wacha is 2.
I think that's where my rankings are as well. So I'm going to stay intellectually honest and say, yep, those are, 69 for Lynch, which is pretty nice, and 71 for Wacha. I got Tit Scratch at 73, and then everyone else is in the 80s or lower. Voth is next at 81. So I'm with you there. All right, Justin, we talked some hitters, we talked some pitchers. We've got a full mix in. What do you got coming up the rest of this week? How's the teeth? Feeling all right?
Teeth are feeling okay. I'm really looking forward to getting the stitches out so I can actually start wearing my replacement. So that way I can actually pronounce my S's.
You're getting better though. You really are.
Yeah.
I'm not just gassing you up. Like it's gotten better each subsequent pod.
I think it's probably more in my head than it is like
understandable.
You
sound like Cindy Brady to yourself. I know that's a really old reference, but that's what you hear.
It is a really old reference.
I'm old. What can I say?
So, but I think hopefully Wednesday I'll be able to start wearing that, and that'll be a lot better. But other than that, like things are going well. Just doing the daily rating at Fangraphs, and DFS is going really well for me.
Yes,
I'm game planning, and you and I are going to talk some more off air about the off season. I'm really going to do some different things this off season, some with the pod, some not with the pod, but like I think you and I are going to change some things up especially for the Patreon, but just in general, just do some cool different things that hopefully people will enjoy. So if you are a diehard, and if you're still listening, you probably are either competing or a diehard for baseball. We're going to be going strong all off season, and we're going to incorporate some new things before other pods come back.
Exactly, we'll be there all the way.
Yeah,
and it's been hard to give a value add to the Patreon with time and everything. It's on the forefront of our minds, though.
Yeah,
and we're going to make it better in the off season. And that's going to be where you're going to get the biggest edge, and then we're going to have kind of mapped out thing in season, so you know what to expect, right? Because we did not make the grade on that this year. We appreciate everyone's support. It's going to have a value add, and it's not just going to be Patreon stuff. It's not just like, hey, give us money. Our off-season plan at Fangraphs is going to be tighter and better. And I know we talked about you doing a chat. It's probably too late for you to get on chats next year or off-season and next year. You got to get if you have the time available, because people have been asking for you. So we'll get all that. Just want everyone to know that, hopefully you've enjoyed the pod and the content, but there's more coming, and we're going to make that Patreon a lot better, a lot more useful. And I'm actually, I'm excited for the off season in that it's a great time to put out great content. I'm not excited for it in that there'll be no baseball. So it's that push pull where I'm like, yes, it's going to be great to execute, but I will miss baseball.
First pitch Arizona. I know Jason and I kind of briefly talked about it on Sunday.
And we did last time too, but
yeah,
every episode we gotta let people know.
And we're gonna have Ray Murphy on the pod on Sunday this week.
Sunday. Okay.
But they released the World Series schedule, and Game 5 would be scheduled for that Wednesday before, which is the day I'm going to be flying in.
I might have to go early then.
Yeah. For those who weren't there last year, it was earlier, and so the first round of the playoffs, and we had some awesome watch parties.
It was great
for the playoffs. So
remember when somebody was saying Cody Bellinger's dog shit?
Yeah, I remember that. That was that got heated.
It was me.
I don't know who it was. Oh,
it was me. It was me talking to Nick.
Yeah, I remember.
I know you do. I know you do.
So yeah, it's we do a live pod from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually planning on maybe doing a few live pods while I'm there. Just you may not all be Sleep on the Bus, maybe TGFBI, maybe FWFB. Maybe a new venture that I'm thinking about starting as well. So, yeah, so there's going to be a lot of fun stuff this off season. So don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere.
Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Dustin Mason FWFB at Sporer. And we're gonna do a lot of fun stuff.
If you're a baseball fan, we got you all year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's great. All right, Justin, talk to you later in the week. Peace.
Take it easy.